Hello and welcome to another tutorial in our second series. I believe this is the third episode. Today I'm going to go over doing HTTP requests so that we can start working on a login. I hesitate to call it a whole login, but we'll see how much you guys want me to go into this. At the very least, we're going to go into making the HTTP request, and then a little bit of PHP work, a little bit of MySQL work, yeah, that's kind of where we're going to start. So today we're not going to do any PHP or the MySQL. Today we're just going to be doing the work in the game and in the engine. So our goal is to make our first HTTP request. To do that, we're going to create a HTTP handler class. It's pretty basic, but it just makes the sending encapsulated and nice, so you can do it in a one-liner. We're going to create the beginning of a login screen class. When I say login screen, I'm being real loose with the term today. It's not going to have any visual whatsoever today. If you guys want me to go into that, we can. If not, making a form is something you should be able to do pretty easily. Anyway, but yeah, we'll start a class for that. We're gonna hook it all up, and then we're gonna test it, and then a little bit tongue in cheek, but I need to get started on the next tutorial after that. So, but before we get started, guys, if you'll take just a second and hit that like button, or subscribe, or both, or comment, all those things are great. Share this video with your friends if they need anything, or if you think that they would be interested. It's a big help to me and helps to grow the channel. So thank you in advance. I know everybody says that stuff, but as a small creator, I mean, a couple extra shares is a big deal. Okay, without further ado, let's get moving. So first things first, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup over here in Z Engine. To more match what I'm used to seeing. Here we're going to have something called engine classes. And, you might say, well, that's everything. Everything's an engine class. Well, for me, it's things that aren't basic 2D and aren't file I/O. Those are things that I keep out. And so I'm just going to move all of this stuff in here. All of that should be fine. It doesn't hurt anything to do this. But I may have put that in the wrong one. Let's try that again. Okay. I think I just stuck that in the wrong one again. It goes in engine classes. There we go. It's been a day. It's kind of late for me here, and I make mistakes. Okay, we're gonna make a new file. We're gonna call it HTTP, and you can either capitalize that or not. I like it capitalized, so I'm gonna redo it. It's up to you what you do there. We're gonna create a new class, so add new item, and we're gonna do a class. This one is called HTTP handler. And whereas I just told you I like it capitalized, I still prefer camel case over anything else. So I'm gonna do that, and then we can go to any other file, grab the includes out of it. Done. We will chop that down to just Z Engine, and then here public as always. From there, we are going to have just a few variables. We'll have a bool named last ping failed. I'm not actually going to use this, but you probably should have it. And then completed. From there, we're going to have, well, it should be public. From there, we should have a public HTTP client, and I call that just client. Here we should have public HTTP handler. And inside here, we just are going to initialize these variables. So last ping, oh shoot, I didn't spell that right. Ping failed. Last ping failed equals false. Completed equals false. And client equals new HTTP client. Okay, simple. Inside this class, we're going to have one main function here, and it's just going to be make request. But the thing that's special about it is it's an async function, so give me a second, we'll talk about that. But we have public virtual void, or not virtual void, virtual async, A-S-Y-N-C, there we go. Void, and then this is going to be make request. All right, before I get into too much about this, an async function is an asynchronous function. If you don't know what an asynchronous function means, is it's basically threaded. That's the ins and outs of it. If you don't know what that means, it means that it's going to run in parallel. So that's going to give you two things happening. First of all, you can send as many of them as you want, and for the most part, they're going to come back correctly. The negative is that you will cause race conditions. So you need to be careful about that. If you send two of these things and you're expecting them to come back in the order you sent them, that may or may not be the case. So be careful when you're making asynchronous calls. Race conditions can be extremely difficult to debug, so you need to be careful about having them occur in the first place. Okay, so make request. We are going to want a URL to make our request, so string URL. We are going to want to send post data. I don't know how much you guys know about how the internet works, but you can send get data and post data. Post data is substantially more secure, though it's still nowhere near secure. But it's an extra hurdle for your hackers. So we're going to send post data. To do this, we're going to use a dictionary of type string. Is there other ways to do it? There is. This seems to be the simplest way, and that's why I tend to use it. So a dictionary is kind of like an array in a lot of ways. But you can define both its key and its value. So in an array, you have your key is your I or whatever. It's a numerical, 0 through whatever. And then your value is whatever your value is. In this instance, we will be able to put a string in for our key and also have a value, which in some instances is extremely helpful. In some ways, people could solve this with like an enum or whatever as well. But I just want to kind of go over that. I'm not going to... It's not super important. You'll see how easy it is to use, but I just wanted to kind of cover a little bit about the data type. So pass object, which we've used many times before, is an ability to call a function. So we're going to be able to call a first function, which is process func, and we also want to have failed. It is possible to get failed. That can happen one of a lot of ways, but the two major, like 99% of your faileds are going to come from either you had an error in your PHP or you failed to process the data correctly. So those are the two things that are going to happen here. So failed func is kind of a catch-all, so that you can kind of see, oh shoot, I screwed something up, and then you can handle that however you choose to handle it with your program. And that's going to be different for the different instances of your calls. So some calls, a failed, you won't even care. Other ones, a failed may be crucial and you need to resend or alert the user or do whatever. But that's all in here, so we'll be able to deal with it. So in order to handle this, we're going to use a try catch. Okay, this is our failed, so I'm going to do that one first because it's shorter. So if it fails, we're first going to check that the failed func is not null. So failed func not equal null. Because if it's null and you try to call it, then it breaks. So we're just gonna test for that just in case, because we don't want to break our program just because we did a dumb HTML or PHP error, right? So crashing's no good. We don't want that. So failed func, and then we just call it with null because we're not passing anything in. We just need to call something, and then we set our last ping failed to true, and completed equals true. And the reason completed is true is because you just need to know that this is at a state in which it's complete. You can choose based on the fail func to leave your completed false if you're going to loop back through it, but we're not going to deal with that right now. So we just need to know this complete. All right, to handle the actual sending now, first we need to make sure that our dictionary is not null. So the way I like to do that, and you can do it any number of ways, this is just easier to deal with. So dictionary string, right, because that's what we have up here. And then we have temp, and we're equaling it to our string coming in. By the way, that was my cat. He wanted to come say hi. So, you know, that's always wonderful. And then in here, we're going to just say if data equal null. You could also say if temp equal null. Other one, don't care. Both are the same thing. We're going to say temp equals new dictionary string. Okay, so now it's not null. It's a blank, but it's not null. And the difference is one crashes, and one just continues on with no data, which is good because you don't want to have to pass data in. Some pings, you're just going to do a ping to a file to send you back data. Though you probably should be passing credentials, you could go that route. Okay, so the next pieces are the actual sending of that. So var, which I don't like to use vars all that much, but in this case it really simplifies the code. So we're going to use them. Form URL encoded content temp. So we're taking that dictionary, and this is actually why we use the dictionaries, because this particular function wants a dictionary. You can do other things, but the easiest one to use, in my opinion, is dictionary. So that's what we're going to use. All right, var response equals await. So that's another keyword I'll get over in a second. Client dot post async, and then we're going to post to the URL, and we are sending in data, right? And then what await does. Await is the secondary term for async. This is the step that is going to break the synchronousness, the synchronity, whatever you want to call it, of this program. So from here on out, other things are going to be happening in the program while it's waiting for this data to come back. Okay. Hopefully that explains it. I don't want to get too heady into it, but basically other things in the program continue at this point while it's making the HTTP request. It doesn't freeze your program. That would be off if it did. So, all right. The next thing we need to do is we're going to get a response string. String equals await again. Response dot content dot read as string async. So this is going to pull back whatever the in our case PHP page sends us back, and then it's going to give it to process func, and we're going to just give it the response string, so just give the whole thing to it, and then we're going to set last ping failed equals false, and completed equals true. Okay. that is the entirety. So let me just go over it real quick again. We have just a couple of bools to kind of tell us what state we're in. We have the client that we're going to use to send with, and we have our actual sending function, which receives a URL, the post data that we need, and it sends it either to a function that processes the success or processes the failure. We're just double checking our data because null here breaks. We don't want that, so we want to be able to pass a null in here from our one line call, which you'll see in a minute. We're not going to pass a null, but you want to be able to do it, so we double check our data here. These three functions deal with actually making the request. This sends it to the processing, and this sends it to the failed. Notice that because if this isn't a catch, if the process function has a bug crash in it, it will still ping the failed. So keep that in mind. You can change this out if you'd like, but this is the way I do it. So, okay, that's our HTTP handler. Very simple, nothing complex. You can find people making this very difficult to learn. Hopefully this helps to speed up any learning you guys have. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a log screen. So we're going to come up here into our shared project, and we are going to add a folder called source, just like in our previous project. We're going to add new item, class, login screen. Okay, our login screen is going to be relatively simple. We're going to first, though, grab our references, just like we would anywhere else. Our includes, sorry. And I don't think we have that set up here now that I think about it. So let's just grab these ones, and then we're gonna add to it using the engine. Done. Okay, easy peasy. Remove our extra namespaces unless you're into doing all that. Turn it to public. Our login screen, we're just going to have a single bool for loading. We're going to create a constructor. Loading is false. We're going to eventually have update and draw, so we might as well put them in. And then we're going to have send login. So public virtual void send login. Send login is relatively simple. It's just going to make our HTTP request and allow us to put in data. So we're going to say if not loading. This just allows you to kind of lock it out. So it's asynchronous, and it can be helpful to say, no, this file does nothing until that comes back. And this is one of the ways to do that, is to just flag that you're loading. And so we're going to say loading equals true. Then we're going to say var values, values, there we go, equals new dictionary, and I will show you all of it, don't worry, nothing to stress about. String, and we're gonna open and close curlies under it. I know that may seem weird, this is how it works, so just bear with me. The first value is going to be the name of the variable in your post data. So in this case, it's going to be user, and then comma, and then we have another value, and this is going to be the actual value of it. So that's, you know, my screen name if you guys don't know. for just about everything. And then we have, it's a login, so we're going to want a password. So PASS, you can name the variable whatever you want, and then blah. For now, that's good enough. I don't need to go any further than that. So what is this doing? Semicolon after that. What is this doing? Okay, it's saying that we have these two variables that we're passing. One is user and one is password. The value of those variables are Royal Mage and blah. Okay. Hopefully it's pretty understandable. It may become more apparent when we get into the PHP aspect of it, but regardless, this is how you send data via post to a PHP page. All right, globals. Oh, we didn't set up our global yet. We should do that, otherwise this won't work. We're gonna create a global, so public static HTTP handler suite, and then this is called HTTP. Keeping with all of our normal stuff equals new HTTP handler. That's simple enough. Now this should work. Globals.http handler.make request. We have our URL. We're just going to leave that for a second. We'll get back to it. We have our data that we just created, so values. Then we have two functions we need to send. So this is process login and process login failed. And then we'll get to that in just one. We'll get to that right now, actually. So here we have their type pass objects, so we're going to have to feed them objects. Public virtual void process login. And we need to do object info. So this is where all of the data from PHP file would come back, or any file from the internet. I mean, I keep saying PHP because that's what I work in. That doesn't mean you have to use PHP. You can use Rails or Django or whatever it is you like to use. All's the same. Doesn't matter. Process virtual void, public virtual void. Process login failed. That is also a pass object, so object info, and I'm going to copy paste these because they don't matter and they're just comments, but this is if your HTTP request failed, not that the login itself failed. That's a different story. And then in here we're going to say if info not equal null, and this is a successful ping. It does not mean that the login was a success. It just means that it sent out to the page and it came back without error. Very simple. From here on out, you have to decide what happened, and we'll get into that. This is as far as we need to go for this. And we're actually going to put a breakpoint right here, because that's how we're going to test to see that our program worked. The URL that we're going to use is, I'm just going to use for my site, and I'll leave this up. You guys can ping it if you really, really want to, or you can ping your own thing. So bathlethgames.com/tutorial stuff/first ping.php. Okay, so this is just my site. I have lots of them, but this is one of them. Tutorial stuff is just a folder I created in the FTP, and first ping is a simple PHP page. In fact, it's specifically this, right? So this is how you grab post data. I'm only grabbing the user, not the password right now. We'll get into all that later. It's not important. This is a way to get a Unix timestamp, and then this is how I return my data. It is an XML. It's a root and the response itself, which in this case will always be success because it really can't fail. There's nothing to fail on yet. We'll get to that though. And so it returns success and then a message, and then later it can return a bunch of data as well. So data is like all the unique stuff that I return. But this is the structure that I like to return in. And here we're going to say hello to the glorious, whatever the username that you send is. And this is how you string concatenate. It is not plus and plus, it's dot and dot. That's just how PHP does it. Congrats on your first HTTP request at, and then you have the time, and then we close the text. Very, very simple stuff. Nothing special here, but this is the PHP page that you guys will be able to ping. Okay, now that that's dealt with, what we lastly have to do is we have to go into main, and we got to finish hooking all of this up. So we need to declare our login screen. So login screen equal login screen, and then down here we say login screen equals new login screen, and then login screen dot what did we call it? Send. Yeah, send login. There we go. Okay, so that's just gonna send right away. It's not even gonna wait. It's gonna send right as you come in. That's probably not what we're gonna use in the future, but that will get us to be able to test this. So if I run this right now, it should ping, and we should see that information in here. Let's see if it will work, or if I've screwed something up. So that should pop up. There it is. There's our ping and response. Hello to the glorious row of age. Congrats on your first HTTP request at, and that's Unix timestamp for now. Okay, so that worked. That is as far as I plan to go today. I will deal with some PHP work next. And then based on you guys' feedback will be whether you guys really want me to sit and build a form for it. I can do that. Happy to do so. But basically it's really just 2 text fields and a submit button, which is super simple. Please let me know if that's what you want me to do. I will happily do so. But it's going to take a whole other episode. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. It really means a lot to me. The feedback you guys give me online really helps me keep going. So thank you for the feedback. I read all of it. I respond to the vast majority of it. Thank you. And I'll see you guys next time. So have a great night.